Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the REVIVECAST. So I know it's been a while since I've been on here. Business has been a little crazy in a good way. So I figured we'd go a little bit different direction today from the typical, the health and wellness and giving you guys tips with your gut and hormones and all that stuff. But we'll still kind of keep it a little bit centered around health coaching. And we want to give you guys tips on, the business perspective in all this, and not just, the supplements and all that stuff, because the business is part of it, right? How do you get your name out there? How do you, we're going to talk a little about scaling your business if it's needed, when it's not needed. And of course, we didn't think of any other better guest we could have on here than the guy that we're working with. Our guest today is Will Webb with Lead Strategy. We've been working with Will, obviously, on our business, and improving it, scaling it, to kind of grow it into the vision that we want it to become. So welcome, Bill. Will, how you doing today?
Good, man. Yeah, thanks for having me down from Atlanta and hosting me. But it's been great. Yeah.
So, of course, our listeners, we want to give them a little bit of background to who you are, kind of how you came up to where you are at this point, like your little bit of your journey to where we are today.
Yeah. So it all started in a small town in Tennessee. I used to have a thicker accent than this, and we really just kind of needed to go to college and had no way of doing so. So I started a business, which seems kind of unnatural looking back at it. People were like, wait, what? But the reality was I needed to pay some bills, and I had bills at a younger age than most. And I started a marketing agency, and that marketing agency specialized in search engine optimization, and, kind of made some young and dumb decisions. And finally, after a lot of failure and kind of trial and error, I found some success and was acquired, mainly because I needed to be after a business partner kind of set flight, and then kind of transitioned into growing their business and being their advisor. And we grew that business while I was as a full-time student in college, and then was able to sell my stake in that company and go into the corporate world to really understand how businesses are built, how are billion-dollar brands constructed, and what does the culture look like at that scale? What systems do they use? How do they think about things? And then transitioned into being a hired gun for kind of that guy that you parachute in and have them build out everything, and just kind of got done with that, where we had a 3-year build out of an entire division of a service-based company, and built a team of 20 people and had some really cool wins. And now we, in the middle of the pandemic, opened up Lead Strategy, which basically helps companies survive scale, as we kind of jokingly call it. But every business faces this point where they don't know what to do next, and they've reached their peak from, whether it's hours or knowledge. They need to bring on more people for the first time, or they need to strike that system, or they just don't know what they don't know. And we just give that new perspective and help kind of strategize how their future is going to look.
All right, nice. Yeah, so because all this was new to us, obviously, originally, because originally it was just me and Nicole within our company, and we did well, and everything was organic. We never did anything with marketing or whatever, but it just got to a point to where there's so many leads coming in, and there's only 2 of us, and then we just had a bigger vision too, especially when we obviously came down here to Revive, on what we saw what could happen. But we needed the right pieces to the puzzle to make that happen, right? And so we weren't like walking zombies of working 80 hours a week and trying to do everything under the sun to grow the business with just the 2 of us, because it's always just been us. So it was a big step for us to invest in that part, right? Yeah. And obviously Vince is the one that introduced us to you, and just seeing the success of Dom and everything he's done with the company. And, I've talked to him about this many times. So let's dive into a little bit of, in your opinion, what have you seen as far as when someone, and we can kind of keep this focused a little bit more around the health coaching, because obviously you are working with those individuals. Yeah. When do you need to make the decision to start scaling your business, and kind of what is scaling your business?
Yeah. It's funny, right? Because that always is the first question. But the first answer is another question, in that it really depends on your vision. Because if you create a business that you want to work in versus a business that you don't, that's going to have a completely different strategy. And that's going to mean that your decisions that you make are going to happen at different times. And so we always think about things from the empire perspective, the legacy perspective, and the lifestyle perspective. So do you want to enable lifestyle or freedom? And you want to, whether it's, I always joke, but if you want to live on a beach somewhere, right? If that's the thing that you want to do, then that's a set of decisions. If you want to leave a legacy, you have family or friends or a building that you want to be named after, you can do that with a different set of decisions. And then empire, just scale the heck out of it, grow it as big as you possibly can. That's a separate set of decisions. And most of the time what happens is if you don't have any income, then empire is where you start, because you can't leave a legacy without having some success. And not going to lie, but finances are a good scoreboard, right? So that's a good way of knowing, do you have traction, and are you able to actually take the next step to enable yourself to a lifestyle or to that legacy?
Okay, so now we know kind of where you got to make that decision first. Like, what's your vision? Where do you see yourself 10, 20 years down the road with your company? So like with Nicole and I, it was just the two of us. And then when we started all this, it was never like, okay, we're going to scale our business and make it bigger and bigger and bigger. But then we saw our vision. It was like, wow, okay, we can't do this by ourselves. Right. So it was a scary step to make. Like, we got to invest and hire more people under us, hire someone like you to help guide us and put systems in place, to make that happen making an easier process on us, so we're not stressed to the 10th degree. Which we still are to a certain extent. I mean, it's not going to go away, right?
Right.
Over time, it will, once all these systems have been built, and we're much comfortable, and everything's flowing at a much smoother pace. So with the scaling part, once you set that vision and you kind of know what direction you kind of want to go, but still, like, when do you know you need to scale? Or like, what's the next step? Okay, I need to hire somebody else besides me.
Right. You hit it on the head earlier where you said, sometimes it's a matter of bringing on more people. And for us, that's the place that we were, even though we had already brought on one person. But we knew from speaking with others, the last thing we wanted to do was to have to backtrack. So you can either do it on your own and create this team and not have the right systems in place. Granted, we've done a lot of things and figured it out on our own, but it's much wiser to have someone that says, here are the ways to set this up so that later we're not going back, which I'm sure you deal with often, where you're cleaning up things that have already been done. And granted, with one person, we already had made, some, I don't know if we call them mistakes, but some things that maybe that wasn't the best way to start out. And so, we're thankful that it wasn't a whole team and then you're not having a mess to clean up. But that's where we were. But other people that are listening, how would you know my business is at a place where, because again, that kind of definition of scale, does that just mean growth? Does that mean more people? Does that mean more income? What definition do you kind of give and know when to, like, we're ready, we need to do this? Right,
sure. So, the coolest thing that happened with you guys was that you had kind of come to the realization that your vision is bigger than you. Right? And that's so big, because when you realize that your vision is bigger than you, now all of a sudden it's like, all right, I've got to have a team. That's the logical next step, is I've got to have a team, but I don't know how to have a team because I've never had one, or maybe you have, but you didn't like that. And so you want to do it differently this time. To kind of get into hard numbers, right? I mean, I don't want to, I don't know where everybody's at today, but if you really think about it, you're proving yourself. If you're less than, say, $10,000 a month, you're still in the prove it phase. right?
Yep.
And every business goes through that, right? You're gaining reputation. You're trying to get those outcomes with your clients, right? Because if you don't have an outcome that's differentiated from the pack, then you're not going to be able to rise above and have success that's better than the pack, right? If I train less than someone else, they're going to outperform me. And the same thing happens in business. So, I say 100K a year is kind of like my just back of the napkin math, right? Which is $100,000 to $120,000 a year. And what that means is you need to focus on outcomes, and you need to focus on building your reputation, right? You don't need somebody like me. You really just need to form a legitimate business and think about your vision and set some aggressive goals and really focus on, am I getting excellent outcomes with my clients as an individual? And you'll be able to do, $10,000 a month if you've got in the neighborhood of 40 clients, 50 clients. Again, we can, pricing is a whole nother conversation, but you can really accomplish a lot and get all the way to 10K by yourself or with one other person, which you guys have such an awesome start in that you had two. A lot of people, they start with one, and so I would say if you have just one person and you don't have you're not a power couple like these two, then think about, do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody that can pour into you? Because again, you don't necessarily need to think about scale from the top. You really need to think about who are you, who do you serve, and what outcomes are you getting?
Yeah, so that's a good point.
I know.
Because
I hope you're going to say what I'm thinking.
so people, the way the industry and society is now, right? There's a business, like everybody's wanting to hire a business coach right before they've done anything. Yeah. They haven't proven themselves. They haven't built a reputation. They haven't
created the results.
There's no outcome. Yeah. Oh, you're this trainer, you're this coach, whatever you want to call yourself. But where's the proof? Number one, you haven't proven yourself to anybody, but yet you want to scale your business and hire this business coach that's promising you to make 6 figures or 7, whatever it is, when you haven't done all the back end stuff. And to me, I mean, because I started like just from the ground up, basically, and one-on-one training and 60 hours a week, you're doing all that, and then in the online training, and then we are where we are today over the 20-some year period. Right. But people are literally out of the gates. Oh, well, I got my certification. Everybody else is doing the online game, so I'm going to become an online coach. And first thing I'm going to do is hire a business coach before actually like getting the outcomes from the clients. Because of what I'm seeing, you can tell me if you see the same thing, is people may be able to get quantity coming in out of the gates, but then 6 months, a year after that, they built got all this money, but then all of a sudden it goes the other direction. Yeah. Right? All of a sudden they either burn themselves out or they just couldn't get any outcomes, and there was a high turnover rate. Yeah. Right. And then a year or so, it was like, where's this person at? Even though they spent X amount on the business coach, they didn't do the first part. Right.
No, it's so true. Actually, we see it often, right? Yeah. The first conversation that we have with people most of the time is, okay, what isn't working? And if they don't know what's not working, well, then that's a problem in itself. Because if, obviously I gave just a short snippet of my introduction, but it took me 8 months, 9 months to close a deal, one deal. Mm-hmm. That was before I had any outcomes. That was hard. Yep. But the reason that was hard was because I wanted to just take the path of, hey, let me just follow this system and let me just do this thing. Let me buy this course. In reality, that wasn't a solution. I needed to have something different, right? I needed to actually be able to deliver outcomes. And the same in this space. You have to focus on the outcomes first. Mm-hmm. Every service-based business is simplified down to promotion, people, and process. And if you don't have a good process for delivering realistic results time and time again, then it won't matter how good you are at promotion. It won't matter if you have the right people. You'll continue to fail. Or you'll have a burst of income, right? I've seen this a lot. And then in 6 months, you're out of business. Yep. Because you didn't have the right process. Yeah. Right? So it's important.
Yeah, I mean,
it's too much marketing and not enough process.
Yeah. They're putting the cart before the horse. Like they want all this money. It's like, and that's like, what's your vision? What's your passion? Yeah. They're focused on the income.
That's right.
And not actually helping someone or improving their lives and the passion for actually doing your job. And the money signs are there. So that's all they see. It's like, okay, yeah, and you may make a lot of money in 1 year, but where are you going to be 10 years from now? Is that a sustainable? More than likely not. I've seen a lot of people come and go over my 3 decades of doing this, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. So do you think like that's a downfall of a lot of people right now, like especially in the health coaches, like they're jumping into the business coach aspect and hiring those out of the gate without the other part of like get a mentor, learn how to coach really well and do that part of the business before you hire the business coach.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Now, granted, I mean, having some business skills, some basic business skills is important, right? But here's the thing. YouTube is free. So get on YouTube and say, how do I balance a checkbook if you don't know, right? Nobody uses checkbooks anymore, but like, how do you balance your finances? How do you think about some of these basic things? You can get all of that from YouTube for free. You don't need to hire anybody for that. You don't need to pay for their system. And, you know, maybe this is an unpopular decision. I'm certainly not Gary Vee or anybody, but, you know, hustle.
Yes.
Work hard, like actually work, because, you know, taking a shortcut means you don't know how to get there the long way. And if you don't know how to get there the long way, then you'll never appreciate what you do develop. And you frankly won't have sustainable results. You know, when the economy changes or this variable or that variable changes and you have to pivot, you won't know how because you only know one path of getting there, right?
Yeah.
And so part of entrepreneurship, true entrepreneurship, is failure.
Yes.
And embracing that failure. And so I think it's really important for people to hear that, you know, go and use a skill that you already have to make money while you're building this thing up. If you can train in person, do that for a while you build some income. Because if you're in a survival mindset where you need that coaching, that client, anytime you need a client, you're not in a healthy position to give them the best service that they can have.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's honestly a marketing strategy too. Like, right. Like, you see all the time, I have 3 spots left, grab it now.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I get why they're doing it, sure. And I don't know if they even know it's coming across like, well, if you were so good and you were so popular and stuff, you wouldn't be having to announce, I only have 3 spots left.
Right.
Like it's, oh God, if you don't get these 3 spots, you're not going to be able to hire me for another year or something because I'm going to be so full.
Yeah.
Well, if that was the case, you would never have to advertise that in the first place. Like not once have we ever... and I'm getting it, guys. I'm not saying you should never do that. Right. I mean, there's always a time and a place. If you're a beginner and you need to advertise, you know. Yeah. But honestly, when I was coming up, like I coached people for free a little bit to get some momentum going and to prove myself. Like my MBA client, the first one I got, like it was free training completely for almost 3 weeks. I had to prove myself to him that I could actually do that job. Then he hired me, and I had a relationship with him for like 8 years. Yeah. But it wasn't just, oh, I'm a trainer, I'm going to just give you money. No, I had to prove myself over and over and over again. Right. And I think anybody needs to do that for sustainability and for longevity, especially in this industry. Yeah. Right. Because if you don't have the proof in the pudding, then you can talk out your ass all you want with knowledge and this and that. And that's another thing we come across is the application, right? Like we talk about that all the time is people talk a really good game, but when it comes to the application of things, then they're just lost in the dark. And like, I don't know where to go from here because I just read all these books, but never actually work with someone and be able to put this stuff into a process. Yeah. So going back to the business part, so like we made the decision to scale, you know, we started that process. And we had this discussion actually last night about, because you were asked like, how big do you want to get, or what's your kind of end goal? And not that can't change, because ours has honestly changed already 1 or 2 times. I don't want this. But, oh, never mind. Maybe I do want that. I don't know, or whatever. But that aside, when you have made that step to start scaling your business, after that, like, because I'm going to get DMs like this. Where do you go? Like, to someone like yourself to do that, or do you just stick with the YouTube? Like, okay, I'm just going to see what they're saying on there on how to start scaling my business. When is it worth to invest in a company like yourself to really start pushing? Is there like a numbers game? Like you should be making X amount of money before you really consider hiring someone like yourself. You should be a certain part in your career before you hire someone like you. Yeah.
So I find it's I can give kind of general rules of thumb, like I did 120K a year in revenue, by the way, not income.
Yes.
Because
people do that
important
all
to
the time
know,
because
right?
people are like, oh, I'm a 7-figure, and make it perceive
Business.
like it's me. No,
Right.
no, your business may be 7-figure.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that's what you're actually taking
That's
home
exactly
because of overhead. You're paying your employees or
Yeah.
whatever. And I think people that don't know that take that misconception like, oh, they're making $2 million a year. Well, no, the business is.
Right.
They're not actually taking home $2 million.
Yeah.
Not that they're still not doing well, but I think people see that and they're not being misled on purpose, but
That's right.
them not knowing like that's what they think they can get to that fast. And there's a difference with revenue and your actual personal income.
Right. Yeah. I mean, just like when you're training a client in the gym, they all have different decisions, right? If I have a back problem, I'm going to have to be trained differently than somebody who doesn't, right? It's so the same thing happens in business. If you want to accomplish your vision, then your margin might be different than somebody else's.
Yep.
And so playing that comparison game is the fastest way to run yourself out of business. But to kind of answer your question, you're going to run out of one of two things. You're going to run out of leads, or you're going to run out of capacity. Meaning you can't take any more clients because you're too busy and you don't have any time, and so now you feel like you can't post online, you can't even talk to people about joining your business. You are starting to decline in quality of service.
Well, that's a big one, right? The quality, because
Yep.
the people that don't see that, but they just keep taking more people on, the quality starts getting worse and worse and worse because
Right.
all their focus is on their quality of clients. And like, I just need more business.
Yeah.
Well, at some point, now that the quality is going down, now your reputation is going down with that.
Right.
And then, that's the worst thing that you could want. So like, that's like, I'm guessing you're leading into that's when you need to start thinking about.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like this audience would appreciate, you can't just look at the scale, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
On that side of the coin. In business, you can't just look at the numbers and say, oh, well, I need to keep growing.
Yeah.
No, you don't necessarily need to. You need to get it right,
Yeah.
right? And I give the analogy all the time of, do you want 20% of $1 million or do you want 80% of $500,000? Depends. Depends,
Yeah.
right? And so it isn't as easy to figure out. But what I would say is, I mean, when you run out of leads or you run out of time, that's when you need to bring somebody in like us. And there's so many different ways to do that. Obviously, it might start off with something really simple, like, hey, I need to solve just the leads problem, or hey, I need to solve the people problem. What I find, though, is they start to really run together quickly. Mm-hmm. You solve the leads problem, great. Well, now your capacity is going to be blown up. And so now you need to hire coaches. The same person that taught you how to do leads is probably not going to be the same person that teaches you how to do it, unless you have an overarching person that can look at everything, right? Mm-hmm. And even us, like, we don't claim to have this crazy specialization. We're not ad buyers. We don't just do ads. The reason we don't is because we have someone who is a specialist that does that. That way we don't have to have that specialization, and we can be kind of neutral in that sense to say, well, listen, we don't have to do that. We can do this. There's all options on the table, and we get to just have that discussion and figure out what kind of outcome you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, good point though. Like, okay, so for the margin part, right?
Yeah.
Because people, when you start scaling, that comes into play big time. Because obviously when it was just me and Nicole, there was no overhead, there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was just, everything came to us.
Right.
And then you hire someone like yourselves and other stuff that we've done, money's starting to go out. Now there's more money going out. So you have to, how'd you put it, like there's an eroding margin,
Yeah,
right? At some
that's
point,
right.
there's two directions you can go with that.
Yeah.
But there are certain strategies, one will lead you, it just erodes your margin like crazy. And that's obviously not a route you really want to go. But we want to go, most people want to go the other route to keep the margin in a good spot to where they can continue to make more money themselves and not just the company making this massive revenue, but your personal income goes to shit.
Yeah.
Because I've seen that with a few people, right? To where the company's making all this, but they're not really making that much because the margin sucks and the money's going out in every direction.
Yeah.
I'm part of that. So can you give us a little bit,
Absolutely.
with the margin part?
Yeah. So the best margin in your business is the day you open, right?
Sure.
So the day you open, unless you took on debt to open, you're pretty much at that 100% margin line, right?
Yep.
You're still tapping your warm network. You're tapping people that know about you, friends, family, et cetera, to try to get them to buy your services so that you can get those first outcomes. That's great margin because you didn't have to advertise for any of that. Mm-hmm. You delivered the services and you really don't have anyone else that you're worried about. You go on this side of the scale, right, all the way over to 7-figure, 8-figure businesses. And no matter what the industry is, it takes very disciplined strategy to be able to recoup margin from where you were. So what ends up happening is you actually have to protect your margin from day one, right? You have to be thinking about, okay, how much of the pie can go into these different areas. Otherwise, if you go over here and you're at a run rate of $5 million and you say, okay, now I'm going to start to recoup my margin. Well, how do you plan to do that? You're going to have to spend money to be more strategic. And by doing that, you just eroded your margin further. And so you have to make sure then that every single investment that you make is a really good one. And that's not very realistic.
What do you see like since you deal with, health coaching and our demographic, what do you see as far as the margin erosion? What's the most common mistake that you see for them that occurs?
Yeah. So, there's two primary models on the high ticket side. And, when you're talking one-on-one, there's kind of the group and the one-on-one. The one-on-one, you're going to be hiring more coaches to kind of emulate your results. And the first thing that I see is, this person is expecting to make X, Y, and Z dollars, right? And if you give them a percentage instead of a fixed fee, then over time, that's where you can see margin erosion. Another place that you can see margin erosion is not knowing where your leads come from. So if you don't have a very good way of capturing leads and predicting how much money it takes to get a lead, then that's another point of erosion. If you buy every course and every software and every next shiny button, that's another erosion point, right, for your margin. So it can kind of erode from any side depending on what kind of your predispositioned decision-making process is, right? Everybody kind of has their thing, right? If I go and buy a new car, that can be a margin erosion, right? So it comes in a lot of different forms, but what I would say is the first thing that I see is I don't know what to pay this person, and so I'm going to pay him too much.
Yeah, because from us, you look at them, okay, they're a coach, so they need to be paid X amount, because I'm looking at it from maybe our perspective. I'm a coach. I think I need to be paid X amount. Obviously it's encompassing with how the coaching is, but two with that is we're, in my opinion anyways, if you're a coach and you're hiring other coaches under you, don't just hire another coach just because they're a coach, because if you built a reputation and you have a certain quality of service, if you just hire some schmojo that's another coach and their quality of service sucks, that's on you. That's going to kill your own reputation because they're in your company.
That's right.
There goes your company name. Yeah. Obviously with us, we control everything. We give them their education and all that stuff. We don't just hire any person off the street just because they're a coach and then start giving them clients just to build our revenue. Because I know people that do that. Yeah. They keep hiring other coaches because they got to hire. Maybe they have a high turnover rate and they're losing coaches. They're just continuing to have to get more on their team, and just the quality of service just goes the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. Well, then now you're really hurting yourself in the long run, right? So I think quality control is a massive part of scaling, because
and not just that, because from what we've seen too with other businesses similar as well, is a big piece that you've made really important to us is that you have to create a culture, right? Especially when you're bringing on more people. Mm-hmm. And if that's not in place, or let's say you create a facade of a culture, and that's not really, because at the end of the day, it's all about it is a service-based business. Right. And that service also extends to the people that are on our team, that are important to us and working with us and things like that. But we see not just the quality control, which I think is huge, but then it's also, are you taking care of your people? Yeah. Too. It's so many things, but you've made that really clear with culture and having a vision, because we keep talking about scaling and we can throw numbers out there too. But at the end of the day, is it about numbers? Is it about creating impact and having, more people to serve at the end of the day? Because we could have left our business as is, and that would have been completely fine.
We'd been fine. We
were very,
we were comfortable with our lifestyle. We were fine. We could do kind of what we wanted to all the time. But we want to impact so many more lives because of what we've seen that we've done so far.
Right.
And when you see like, oh my God, that makes you feel so good on the inside, then I want to help someone else do that.
Right.
And then you get more people reaching out to you that want that help because they saw that outcome that we got. And it's like, and that's why we had to start scaling, because there is only 2 of us. But then also we knew for us to do that, we had to have a very high end quality control.
Yeah.
They need to have our knowledge base and how we do our customer service and treat people as an individual and actually give a shit about that person, because we want them to be healthy and successful. So, you know, that was a big thing with us, was definitely the vision. Like, we want to make an impact in the industry. You know, me and Vince have this conversation all the time. Yes, it's nice to have the nice cars and stuff sometimes, but that's not what it's about. That's just a bonus that you may be able to have in your life if you can, but we don't live and die by that.
Right.
We do what we love day in and day out. When we're talking about this stuff, like with him or with you, starting about, we can just talk about this all the time. Yeah. And it's not like, oh, I don't want to talk about this anymore. We just love talking about it.
Right.
I can go off at the mouth for like 3 hours. That's how I do my seminars. I can just talk. Right. Because I actually have, it doesn't bother me to talk about it. I love talking about it because it's my passion. So for us to spread that, we need more people under us with the quality control to spread it once we're past, you know, when our road kind of comes to an end, to an extent. Obviously, I'm never going to retire people, so don't worry about that. But to keep building it and having greater and greater and greater impact across the board. I mean, that's my big vision with everything I'm trying to do here. And I think if you have that as a passion, that will help you scale your business and be more successful and sustainable long term. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one of the most important things you said, Nicole, was just people matter, right? And if we can talk numbers, we can talk strategy, we can talk whatever you want. If we choose the wrong people to be representing our business, then we also fail, right? Not only do we fail the industry because we're trying to re-educate coaches on how to do it the right way, but we're also trying to serve people that have gotten whatever education they've gotten, right? I mean, I've learned a lot through this process from you guys, just hearing about, you know, different ways to approach things and from a health and fitness perspective. And so you have to understand you are impacting people's health for the long term. And so people that come in and work with you or for you, however you want to phrase it, they're representing you, right? So it's a pretty big deal to not just like hire your buddy because he's your buddy, right? Make sure that you're going through the process and finding somebody who really will represent who you're trying to either be or are, and make sure that you're keeping a pulse on the quality of that service for sure.
Yeah, you have to have, like, the culture is the be all end all of everything. Like a culture, we try to create like a family atmosphere, obviously. So our coaches know that we actually care about them. We want them to be successful, on top of wanting our vision to come to fruition and to build the business as big as we can to create more impact, not necessarily to create more revenue. That just comes with it, right? Because you're just building a bigger team. And that's honestly like one of the reasons that we came down here was culture. You know, I've told you about Dom and Matt, like how they treat us. Like, we're all family down here. We want each other to succeed. They have their strengths. They do their business. We have ours. We work with each other and we build each other up. It's not one man for himself. Like, if I can do something to help Dom out, I drop anything and help him, and he would do the same for us. And anybody, honestly, his mother, like anybody that we're connected to down here, and that drew us down here. That's why we came down here. I mean, like, it was just like it was a gut feeling. Like, we knew that it was good. It's turned out to be great, and continue to do what we're doing, and then connecting with more with Vince, more with you, and we're just continuing to build the culture as big as we can. But it's still a small circle at the same time, right? We're not getting crazy with it because we do have a smaller circle that we truly trust, right? And that's a big thing, is being able to trust the people that you're around, and to basically make everything that you've dreamed of, have the passion for, to come alive, right? So it's kind of in this. We always like to give a couple pointers or something that's simple, take homes for people with this. So, with this being about, you know, scaling the business to an extent, or just building your culture, whatever you want to say, what are, you know, 2 to 3 things you would tell someone that's trying to create, that's trying to create an impact, and they've heard everything that we said, and they think they're in this spot, to to start taking it to another level and scaling the business? What are the first 2 to 3 things that you would tell them?
Yeah. So, I mean, it really is going to come down to a simple question. We can only get so far by ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. You talked about community. And so the first piece of advice I have is make sure that you're surrounded by the right community, right? Mm-hmm. That could be a coach, that could be a mentor, that could be a friend, that could be your family. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. You do need that support community to make sure that you're breathing the right energy, right? The second thing is that you control your work ethic. And we always, everyone's heard that before, but I think it's a really important point. Alan, you talk about how you never have to talk about having 3 slots left, right? Part of the luxury that you have is experience. Yeah. In that you've built a reputation over the long term. I think if, I won't say it, but how long you've had to build your reputation, most people want to be successful faster than that because they've been taught that they should, right? And we can debate all day whether that's right or wrong. But at the end of the day, your consistent actions over time is what's going to make the difference. And then the third piece of advice that I would give is really, don't get caught up in too many of the details. You can make mistakes and recover from them, but you just have to continue to move forward and take a lot of action. You can't just say, well, I can't do this because all of those limiting beliefs and negative mindset that you carry, that's not going to be successful. So I don't know. I think that
I'll add another.
Yeah.
Have at it.
Why not? Because I think, what we talked about, like you said, so they're at a place where they're thinking, okay, maybe this is me. Maybe I need to also scale my business. Yeah. And kind of just to sum up what we've talked about, it's like, what's your why? Why do you want to do that?
Right.
Because if you don't know why and what's the purpose behind it, it's not ever really going to make fully, full sense of this is, my purpose and this is, what I'm intending to do. Like, you can grow and that's great. But why? Right. What are you doing with that, and what type of impact are you trying to make?
Right.
So I think a lot of times we get caught up in the ideas and the what we see, especially on social media and things like that look good.
Right.
But do you have what it takes to actually get there? Do you have the right people in place, and do you know why you're doing it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you don't know what your why is, that's okay too.
Sure.
I think that's important to state because, you guys, your why didn't change, but your vision did.
Yeah.
Right? And so you might be saying, okay, this is my why. Your why is only going to strengthen over time, right? Mm-hmm. But your vision is going to adapt as your life experience unfolds. And so I don't know if this is appropriate, but like if anybody wants to have a conversation about why, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
I love talking about why, because why is why we get up in the morning, why we serve the clients that we do, why we're just in business in general. And so even hearing people's why is inspiring to me, and I'm happy to facilitate any of those conversations that people want, for sure.
100%.
So that leads us into where can we find you?
Yeah, so obviously we always leave for their guests, so what if someone wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah.
What's the best way to do that? Do you have platforms? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of been flying in the dark for the last year, and so kept a really low footprint. So if you do want to reach out to us, then you'll find our blank social media page at Lead Strategy on Instagram. You can shoot us a DM there. Our website has an inquiry form, leadstrategy.com. You can fill that out and somebody from the team will reach back out to you. You'll probably talk to me directly just because, again, I want to hear your why. But otherwise, that's pretty much all we've got. We've got nothing to sell.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. We love talking about this stuff. And we just want to do something a little bit different, but still obviously centers around the health part and coaching and all that. And I'm sure our listeners will have some great takeaways. So guys, thank you for tuning in again. If you can, please leave us a 5-star rating. Subscribe to our YouTube channel.
You won't invite me back otherwise. So
yes, please. That always supports us.
So do it.
So make sure you're doing that for us. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can always shoot me a DM or a message, and we're happy to get back to you.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me.
Absolutely.